The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to see so many of you in attendance. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for joining us this evening to learn about 7 ways Horizon just got faster and easier. My name is Brian Coughlin. I'm the Onboarding and Training Specialist at Horizon, and joining me this evening is Alan Carson, President of Carson Dunlop. How are you doing tonight, Alan?
I'm doing great, Brian, and thanks for getting this set up, and welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. I'm excited to tag team this presentation with you tonight. And before we go any further, I just want to explain how people can participate in the webinar that we're currently doing. So I want to make sure everyone can hear us, no problem. Audio is working good for everyone. Could anyone let me notice in the chat that they can hear us? Excellent. Thank you, folks. Perfect. Appreciate the feedback, folks. Love it. All right, so I'm going to take a moment here just to explain how you can participate in the webinar. Everyone should see the control panel on the right side of their screen, and at any point you can expand or minimize that control panel by clicking this orange button. Now, with the control panel expanded, you have access to an audio and question section. For audio, luckily all of you are currently hearing me. Now, if anyone is experiencing any issues, you can select phone call. There will be a toll-free number to dial in and listen by phone. So unfortunately, I can't troubleshoot if you have any tech issues, but definitely let me know in the chat and I can resolve that after our presentation. Now, as far as questions, and I see so many of you are submitting them, which is fantastic, please feel free to submit your questions at any time. We love the engagement and participation. Now, if I get a question like, hey, I can't hear you, I'm going to just pause for a second, make sure everyone can hear us. But other than that, I'm going to try to earmark the questions for the Q&A, which will be at the end of our presentation. Now, I do also want to mention that we are going to be at the Ojai Education Conference. That's this coming weekend. And, it's on Friday, February 28th, so next week. And if you are interested in joining, all you have to do is visit that link. I'm going to put it into the chat. Now, this session is from 2 to 5 p.m., and it's going to be hosted by John Kwasnick. New and experienced Horizon inspectors can discover how to get the most out of Horizon, including new features, as well as tips and tricks on profitability and productivity. So if you are interested, space is limited, make sure to register, and we look forward to seeing you at the conference. For anyone watching a replay, that link will be live until Monday, the 24th of February, so you can register if you're watching this from a replay. All right, let's get into our agenda for this evening. And tonight, the bulk of our time is going to be spent reviewing the new customized tool and all the features and benefits it provides to you. We're going to start by showcasing the ability to create your own company items. Now, this is a game changer, folks, and one that provides so much added functionality to what you could have done and now what you can do to items. It is literally like the dawn of a new horizon. And you know I had to say it. We'll then take a moment and we're going to look at how you can edit existing company items, aka the stuff that Horizon already had in there for you. So you can update things like implications, illustrations, or even rename the item itself. So no longer do you have to manually remove illustrations from an item that you don't want before publishing, right? Maybe you're sick of our implications, not a problem whatsoever. You can change them across the board. Now, you want to repurpose an entire item even? Go ahead. The freedom is completely yours with this new tool, and you'll see how tonight just how easy it is for us to do. Once we've had our hands sort of full with editing items, we'll move along to personalizing category names, right? So we're going to show you how you can personalize category names to meet your own preferences of phrase or word choice. We've opened up the door for complete customization, not only to items, but also the categories themselves. We'll also look at rearranging the order of items as they appear in a category. This controls not only how you see items when you make and write a report, but also the output of items inside of your report itself. So a lot of control given to you with this sort function. Then to sort of cap off our customization tool, we're going to review the ability to convert a blank item to a company item. Now, to do this, we got to revisit the report writing screen. So we're going to jump over to there after we're done with our customized screen. And that actually allows us to complete the last two updates as well. So we're going to also spend some time reviewing preset recommendations. And although we've had this feature for a short while, it now applies to any recommendation item. This is a must-use feature if you're looking to maximize your report writing efficiency and reduce those deja vu moments that you have when making common and often repetitious recommendations. And speaking of maximizing your efficiency with Horizon, we've also introduced searchable short names. You can now internally code items with unique short names that are searchable, so you can quickly find and add any item to a report in literally seconds. This makes our search function all the more powerful and responsive to your preferred lingo. You'll be amazed at how easy it is to write a report with this method. That is, if you don't already. And of course, folks, there's always going to be time at the end of our presentation to answer your questions. And we look forward to going over as many as we can. Now, Alan, anything you want to add in before we jump over to our Horizon?
I don't know, Brian. I feel like most other people. Let's get on with it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Excellent. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and do so. All right. So everyone, at this point in time, I am at the report writing screen. And from here, first thing we're going to go over is how to create your own custom items. Now, you might have noticed that we've introduced a new customize feature on our menu, and it's in the top right-hand corner. So this button here is where we're going to make most of the magic happen tonight. So to get started, we're going to click that button, and that's going to take us to the customize screen. So once we're at the customize screen, it basically unlocks everything that you can potentially do with an item. Now, I mentioned that we're going to start with the biggest bang for our buck, which is creating our own company items. So to get started, the first thing I'm going to do with you is actually go to my plumbing section. And then from our recommendations, I'm going to create one about a reduced size vent connector. Now, in order to find the category that I want to use, I'm going to show you a bit of a trick. If you hold the Control key on your keyboard and press F as in find or friend, it's going to bring up a find function on your browser, which allows you to basically search by keyword and find any item up or down on the page. So in my case, I want to type venting system, and before I get to the end of system, it's already identified 3 matches for me and take me immediately to the first. Now, conveniently, this is the actual match that I'd like to use, so we're going to stop there. However, if it wasn't, if I hit enter on my keyboard, it takes me to the second or third match, depending upon how many times I continue to hit enter. Or one more time, and I'm circled back to the venting system category that I'd like to use for this evening. Now, if you happen to be a Mac user, you can also press Command F, and that will bring up the same functionality, so you can find items using Control F on a PC or Command F on your Mac. It's a really quick and easy way to find categories that are sort of buried halfway or 2/3 of the way down a page. So now that we've found the appropriate category, we're going to use the new Create button. And when we click on Create within that category, we're brought to the Create a New Item window. So from here, this is really where the magic begins. We have to name the item. So I'm going to type it in. And if I typo here, give me a second here, I apologize. All right, so we've got the item name in. Now, this is a really new feature that was introduced just last week, the short name. It's completely optional, but it does give you that flexibility of putting in a code that you can then easily search for to add this item to a report. Now, for this particular one, reduced size vent connector is pretty darn unique. So if I search for it, I'm probably going to find it maybe just a couple extras. So I'm not going to add in a short name for this particular item, but we're going to use it in a couple other ones. It's such a handy tool. And just so everyone's aware, although I'm demoing everything on the web version of Horizon today, short names are searchable inside of Horizon Mobile, right? And that's where the beauty of it, in my opinion, really happens. All right, we're going to save at this point. All right, so it always takes you to the top of the screen. No worries though, Control F or Command F, venting system's already still there. One enter, we're back down to where we need to be. I'm going to click on Reduced Size Vent Connector. You can see it's the last on my list at this point. And when I click on that, I'm now brought to the Customize screen. So it's done in 2 stages. First, we want to establish the item or condition itself. We can even add in that short name. And then we have the ability to then further refine it. And at this stage, you can see we've got a host of options. So first, if we ever made a typo, or maybe we have a change of heart on how the name of the condition or item should be, we can easily revise it here. Just so you're aware, this field supports up to 8,000 characters in case you've got something crazy long to add in. Although I will show you a more sophisticated way to add notes to a recommendation using presets a little later on. All right, we've got that short name field, which again was at the previous screen. We're not going to tackle that for this item. We then got a URL field. And I'm going to show you how to incorporate a URL in a couple items that we create tonight, but not for this one. One of the things to be mindful of when you are putting in a URL, make sure to include the http://. I'll point that out again when we paste in the link, but I just wanted to mention it here and now. Also, the auto-include function, right? If you check that box, this item is going to be auto-included in your reports. That means all future reports. Now, just because something is set to auto-include doesn't mean you can't manually deselect it when you're writing that report. So you're not going to be stuck with it permanently in your reports in case you ever want to change and remove it from one. All right, let's get to the implications. This is a really handy feature. I know a lot of people have been dying to change Horizon's implications. Well, we're giving you that freedom. Here we're going to add in our own implication. So again, pardon me if I typo, let's get this in.
So Brian, if you spell something wrong when you're entering this, what happens? Is there any kind of spell check or protection for you?
We do have a built-in spell check. You can see that it's identified backtrack. Now, fortunately, that is the correct word. However, it does highlight it in red, indicating that there is a potential typo. If you right-click on the word, it even gives you some potential matches, so you could check and choose a different one if necessary. So it is very handy, built in right there for you. And if you ever do typo a word, just notice that red underline, right-click, and you can hopefully remedy that with the correct spelling. Great point there, Alan. And then we've got our illustration function. So folks, we have over 1,800 illustrations, 1,805 to be exact. Last year we had just over 1,700. So we're constantly incorporating new illustrations for you to utilize. So if you ever illustrated home guide, you can search by illustration number, or you can just search by a couple keywords. So size event works good for me. And second match here is the one that we're sort of looking for. So when I select that illustration, it's now added to the item. Now, if I want to confirm that's the correct illustration, I simply put my mouse over. Now, I got my screen a little zoomed in, so give me a sec here. I'll zoom out a bit, make it a little bit easier for folks. And then again, you can see there we've got that full illustration, and we can see exactly what it looks like. All right. So from here, at the bottom of the screen, we do have our save function. I do want to point out, though, before I click save, the reset to all original system values. So at any point, if you ever want to reset this item basically back to square one, which would be the item name itself, you can click this button and everything goes back to square one. We also have a delete function here. So if you ever find that the item is no longer relevant, you can also delete it from your reports. Bear in mind, though, that if the item is added to a report, you have to go and remove it from that report first. All right, let's go ahead and click save. And we've got our first new company item created. We've got our own condition, its implication, illustration, and a little later on tonight, I'll show you how you can take it to the next step by adding in a preset recommendation. We're going to add in a task, a time, and note, really to complete the whole kit and caboodle. All right, so we've got our first item down, folks, and I do see all those questions, so I guarantee you we're going to get to them, and I'm sure some of them are going to be answered as we go through the presentation. So please don't think that I'm ignoring you. We just got a lot of ground to cover tonight, and I appreciate everyone sticking with. All right, so we've got our first item in, and I'm going to go back to the top of the screen, and we're going to go to our interior section next. I want to create a couple in the interior with you. So we're going to focus primarily on recommendations, right? We'll get into some description and limitations items a little bit later, but it's pretty cut and dry when we get there. This is the real meat and potatoes of things. So from here, I'm going to address a potential fire hazard, and that is lint fire, or basically lint in the dryer exhaust. So Control F, real handy, dryer. Look how quick and easy it is to find that particular category. Now in this case, I'm going to use the create button again. And it's sort of a rinse and repeat process at this stage for us, but really want to hammer away at how quick and easy it is to get your own items in. Let's hope I don't typo here. Of course, I say that and do the exact same thing I was hoping not to do, but we get it in. This time I'm going to use a short name. All right, so the short name for this Well, why not dry or lint? All right, so I'm going to be able to find this with typing the full word, or remember, we can use as little as 2 to 3 characters of an item. So I can put in dry and then lint and get the same item. So we're going to go ahead and save this. All right, so again, we're just going to Control F, hit enter one time. We're back down to our dryer section, and we've got dryer lint set up. Let's go ahead and click on that. And we're just going to add an implication. Later on, we'll expand it with our preset options. I'm going to say potential fire hazard. All right, at this point in time, we can save our work. Second recommendation in the books. You may notice that anytime we do create an item, it appears at the end of the list of options within that category. We'll later visit that sort function, but that's how we can rearrange things and put it into the sequence that we prefer, be it alphabetical, order of priority, or severity. Really, it's up to you. All right, as we're at the interior section, I'm going to go ahead and set up another one with you. Someone says lost audio. Just want to make sure everyone is still hearing us. Okay, perfect. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much. It's definitely the one thing that I hear is a panic. So as soon as I see that, I do like to pause and just double check. Thank you so much for everyone. I really do appreciate that. And the Control F function, just so you're aware, folks, works across the board, not just at the customize screen. You're at the report writing screen. When I'm in heating, looking for something like chimney and vent, which is essentially three-quarters of the way down the page. Yes, I know exactly how far down to scroll. Don't judge me. But outside of that, Control F, you can find anything quick and easy. And I'll show that when we get to the report writing screen as well. Again, I'm sorry for folks that audio's cutting in and out. That's not something I'm anticipating, and hopefully it does remedy for you. And for everyone else, thank you for letting me know, and hopefully the audio just stays strong for the bulk of us. All right, so we're going to create one more, and we're going to go back to the top of the screen. Now, this is a category that I find a lot of people don't utilize. And in fact, I probably should have just typed overview, duh, and that would have taken me right there. But it's the recommendation overview category at the top of the screen. This is great for things that are not necessarily specific to a general component, right, or item. Now, let's say that I wanted to make a recommendation about code compliance for basement apartments. I wanted to put in a link and things like that. Well, let's go ahead and set that up. And I feel the overview category is really appropriate for that. And it's going to position that recommendation at the very top of my interior section. It allows me to prioritize things over something that perhaps is wrong with the ceiling or walls. So we're going to go ahead and click create within that overview category. And then from there, we're going to set up the name. So I'm going to basement apartment code compliance. And the short name, I'm going to use BA code. Save and close, or just save here. Okay, so if you give me a second, I'm going to grab the article because I've got it stored over in a Word document to save us from me trying to type that bad boy out. But get that here. All right, so let's go ahead and click on our BA code. So one of the cool things about establishing a short name initially is that it shows you the first time you save what the short name is. So you can see it says BA code here. That just allows me to confirm that I'm actually happy with the short name. When we edit the item, it's going to show the actual item itself. So you'll see in a second here. So we've got the item, we've got our short name. I'm going to paste in a URL. So again, I really recommend that you copy it from the website you're going to. Don't try to type this in, especially if it's as long as what you see here. Make sure to include the HTTP, or in this case, HTTPS:// at the beginning of your link. You want to have that, otherwise it won't establish the link. In fact, if I don't have that, it won't even let me save here. So it is something that we have to have in. Otherwise, when I attempt to save, you can see what happens. It tells me there's an invalid link. So Horizon has fail-safes built in to ensure that you don't mess things up. And you know what? That's handy because I've done a lot of messing things up in my testing, and it's helped me avoid some unnecessary mistakes. So we've built that in. You cannot make a mistake. And yes, recommendation overview outside of general, which we'll talk about near the end of the session, is always the first category that appears in that respective section's recommendations. All right, so we've got our link in here. So we've got our condition, we've got our short name, and our URL. Now later on, we're going to add in some verbiage, some other items to this, but we've got the foundation of our item created. Perfect. So you can see here that now that we've confirmed the short name is accurate, when we come back to the report writing screen, it shows us the condition, because in essence, we're going to be looking to modify that by and large, so it's easier for us to identify when we're here. Okay, so we've at this point created 3 recommendations together. I think that everyone's sort of getting the fill of that, but let's go ahead and just revisit how to create items in the description and maybe even limitations, right? I want to make sure everyone gets the full understanding of how it's done. And fortunately, it's just as easy everywhere else. Now let's go over to our roofing section. And one of the really cool things I like about this feature is, you know, with Horizon, sometimes you have amalgamated conditions, right? And that was due to some antiquated technology that we've updated now. So the sky's the limit when it comes to really making things the way that you would like. Good example here. Let me scroll down to my flashing section. And I'm getting to my chimney flashings, okay? So we've got one here called missing base or cap flashings. Now, realistically, those are 2 independent items. And now we could separate those out. I could do the same with the missing top, bottom, and side flashings, or damaged, loose, open seams, and patched, although those create a little bit more work for us tonight, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. So I'm going to tackle one a bit easier for us. And we're going to start by first creating the new item. And I bet you already guessed it, we're going to click Create. So I'm going to do the missing base flashings.
Yeah, some people call these base and cap flashings. Some might call them step and counter flashings. Another word for step flashing is baby tins. So whatever language works for you and your clients, and maybe I'll just reinforce that thought. Works for you is great. Works for your clients is way better. I like to keep technical terms like baby tins, which is kind of a roofer slang term, probably out of my report. Clients aren't likely to understand that. The base and cap flashings are the things that kind of make the most sort of layperson sense. Step and counter flashings are 1 notch up and baby tins 2 notches. So I prefer trying to communicate in my client's language rather than the contractor's or trade language.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Alan. That's super helpful. So we've got our item in here. And again, short name, not necessary for this. We're going to save it. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to type chimney. How convenient, first one there. And we've got our missing base flashings. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on that. And we're going to add in our implication. Okay, let me just copy and paste that. New keyboard, folks. All right, so we've got the implication in, we've got our condition. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, so we've got missing base flashings here, and we're going to ultimately separate out missing base or cap flashings in a moment. But before we get to that, I do want, actually, you know what? We're right here, might as well take care of that. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So at this point in time, we're going to click on missing base or cap flashings, and literally, we're just going to change the name. Oops. And then save. So at this stage, we've been able to successfully create missing base flashings as its own independent condition. We've also modified our missing base and cap flashings to be solely missing cap flashings. So that gives us that ability to truly break things out, and anything that may be previously amalgamated that you don't want, you have that control of separating them out as you see here. And we'll resort them in a bit. But I sort of got ahead of myself there just because I was super eager and it was right there. I do want to revisit our description for a second because I want to show you how to set up an item there as well. Now from here, let's say that under slope roofing material, I just wanted to create a solar shingle. You know, it's a new kind of material. It's getting popular in some of the states. So let's go ahead and click create. Now this time I'm going to actually link it to something in a bit, but we're just going to type in solar shingles. Save our work. Now the difference when we edit this item is that we don't have all of the different customization tools, right? We're in the description at this point. And by and large, we don't need any of those. What we do have is the ability to put in a URL, a short name, or have it auto-included. So this is what I recommend doing, is having the website already open and copy the link from the address bar, saves you from having to potentially make a mistake, and then just pop it into the URL field. Save and close, and we're brought back to the customized screen. So Brian, pardon me, Alan.
Brian, I just got to stop and say how cool that is that you can link so quickly and give your clients more information to read. What did that take, Brian? 5 seconds? Maybe 10? If you had to go look for the website, it would have been a little longer, but most of you, when you want to do that, you've got an article at hand or in mind. And it is so powerful to be able to do that. And Horizon is designed to give your clients the ability to go do that, but not the obligation. So it doesn't clutter up the report, it doesn't distract the client from the big stuff, but it gives them that opportunity to drill down and learn more so quickly. I've always loved that, and just seeing Brian show you how quickly you can now do that for virtually anything is very helpful, I think.
Excellent. Now, guys, and gals, pardon me, looking at our screen here, we have, I think, pretty much ran the gamut of creating items. Obviously, there's some questions we'll tackle, but let's move along to customizing some of the existing company items that were already there, similar to what I just did with the missing base and cap flashings. Now, I do want to make note that when I was creating that recommendation in interior, so I'm just going to get back there for 1 second here. So I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that when I was creating this recommendation for the basement code compliance, you might have noticed that it didn't include an implication. Implications aren't mandatory. So if you feel that one's not needed or not practical perhaps for this particular one, don't add it in. That field will simply be omitted from the report. So again, everything is at your discretion. No obligation to add anything you're not comfortable with adding in. All right, let's get over to some editing. And I'm actually going to jump along to our structure section here. And at structure, whenever I am filling out a report, I tend to find that if I select typical minor cracks, we get 4 illustrations. They're great illustrations. Maybe are they always applicable? Maybe not. Well, personally, I find myself removing them more often than not. You know what? Let's go ahead and remove them for good. What do? I simply come to the item, in this case, typical minor cracks, and I start to click on the little box, the X to delete the illustrations. And at this point, I don't have any illustrations auto-included with this recommendation. That's going to save me from having to constantly use that Edit Illustrations button at Report Publishing, letting me have the item exactly the way I want. Save, and we've made that change. Now, I do want to point out that if you ever have a change of heart, you simply go back to typical minor cracks, reset to original system values, click OK, and we're back to square one, illustrations in tow. So we do give you that ability, that fail-safe. If you ever make a mistake, or perhaps you made too many edits, you can always reset back to square one and have it exactly like Horizon had built it in originally.
Brian, one of the things I wanted to make clear to everybody is when Brian was creating one before and added an illustration, he added one illustration. You can add multiple illustrations. Obviously, in Horizon, we set up 4 here to deal with 4 situations. Another possibility is to take this one recommendation and create 4 different recommendations, one of which is exactly suited for each illustration. So you've got flexibility that you never had before. Create, change, condense, expand.
That's an excellent point, Alan. In this case, I was going ahead and thinking simplistically, you know what, let's just take out the illustrations. But to your point, we could repurpose this into 4 unique items, have the illustration, which is a great supplement for our clients, for the readers, and still be able to utilize that added benefit of Horizon. Excellent point there. So just because we were going to delete them from this one, just as an example, I'm going to take them out so when we go and look at the live site, we are going to see it in effect. Now, folks, I know you may not see things like task, time, those fields are going to be established when we go to presets. So this is where we can create sort of the fundamentals of our items, right? The item name or condition, we can establish implications or illustrations. The recommendation aspect of things, location, task, time, even notes, we will supplement at the report writing screen. And I'll show you how that's done very shortly, I guarantee you, folks. So just stay with us. All right, so we're going to save our work, and we've made the first revisement to an item within Horizon, removing those illustrations. I should correct myself actually the second, because we've already changed that item from 1 to 2, or from 2 to 1 conditions. So let's go ahead and make another edit here. And another really common thing that people like to do, or wish they had the ability and now can, are change our implications. And I know one that for me, I commonly unselect. I'm going to go to my interior recommendations, and I'm going to do a Control F and type in storm. And I'm going to change missing, the implication on missing. So I personally like the first part of it, but I'm going to remove the latter half. So I'm just simply going to delete the other two implications and have the one associated with it. At this point in time, save, and we now have that modified with its own implication. So at any point in time, if you feel that implications are not practical, maybe they're a little alarmist for the item, you can always go in and modify it. Now you'll notice that we have to set the implication or we would leave it empty. So at this stage, you don't have the ability to toggle through multiple implications. It is something that you're going to have to set for that unique item. So keep that in mind. One of the things that you could always do are create multiples if the severity of things is different, and then you could change the implication based around the severity of a certain item. So you could have 2 or 3 missing for the storm shutters, but depending upon the scope and severity, you may change the implications. Now for storm shutter, you probably won't have 3 or 4 variants of that, but in other circumstances, you could always have more than one and then have the implication differ. And then the short name would be a very convenient way for you to identify which one you want to add in. So then when you're on site, you choose, if you've got 3 potentials, you select the one based around the severity and the corresponding implication gets dropped in. And when we save, we've made that change. And again, folks, when you do reset, as you see here, so I'm just going to go back into that item and we reset to original system values, it essentially resets everything down to its name. So here I've reset it down to all the standards. So when I click on it, right, it's back down to what originally was there. Now, if I reset an item I created, the same thing happens. It's going to go back down to the name that I established. Anything else will be eliminated. We have to then re-add it. So when it reset, it basically resets it back to its name. All right. So I accidentally didn't delete that because I reset it there to show. So I'm just going to remove that and we're going to save our work. All right, folks. And I love the engagement, folks. We got so many questions. I hope everyone's bunkered down for a good lengthy Q&A. All right. So obviously editing implications just like that, right? Easy to do, no problem whatsoever. What about just terminology preference, right? Maybe you like to say waste disposal. Maybe I like to say waste disposer or garburator. Not a problem, right? Completely up to you. So let's go ahead and make that change. And I'm just going to jump over to my interior description. We're going to find our appliance section here. You know what? Let's not even bother having to scroll. Open up waste disposal. Minor change here, but hey, wait a second, folks. It's saying our audio is degrading. Just want to make sure, 1, 2, 3, everyone's good with audio. Thank you kindly, folks. You're the best. Appreciate it so much, everyone. Sorry, I'm like a hawk with that little thing. All right, so you've changed it to waste disposer, right? And you know, if I make a mistake, oh, it's going to highlight it, as you can see here, right? So it's going to constantly highlight anytime I make a mistake, and then I can make sure to correct that. Save. Real simple change, but it gives you that ultimate, unlimited kind of flexibility. Before we would say, unfortunately, no. You don't even have to ask. You just go and do it. It's all up to you. You know, another one, just for good measure here. You know, a lot of people are more narrative based, and I know Horizons doesn't do heavy narrative by design. But just an example here, let's say that you like to write out your limitations or items versus having it in this case. Well, all you have to do is go in and change it. Save, and you've tweaked that to your own preference. Right? So obviously these are relatively minor in the grand scheme of things in comparison to making your own recommendations, but the flexibility is there for you. Anything that you want to do with your reports, it's completely available. And remember, next time you full sync on the mobile app, these changes are transferred to the mobile app, ready for you to use in real time. All right. So as far as editing items, we pretty much ran the gamut, right? We can modify the illustrations, we can repurpose an item, we can change its implications, we can change the name of an item, we can update pretty much anything we'd like. Now, in the framework of customizing things, it is truly awesome, Michael. I have to agree. You know, not to toot our own horn, but it is awesome. And another thing, you know, in the vein of customizing, is personalizing category names, right? So just like you have the ability to change asphalt shingles, well, I wouldn't change asphalt shingles, but just like you have the ability to change waste disposal to waste garburator, you also have the ability to change a category name. You know, I know that some people will refer to roof shape as the type of roof, right? So all you got to do, come in here, and if this is your preference on what the category is phrased like, so be it. Make the change, save your work, and instantly it's applied. Now remember, this is going to impact all of your subsequent reports. Anything that's generated, it's not going to change that in a generated report. So you don't have to worry about those. And the integrity of all of your past reports is there. Nothing ever changes there, folks. And I guarantee you, folks, we're going to talk about my items. Promise you. Promise you, promise you. So stay tuned. All right, so let's go ahead and just make another quick change while we're at the description for roofing. You know, me being a bit particular on how I like things phrased, I like to use the direction the home is considered to face. Save, and we've got that updated. Again, minor changes, but it's there for us. This will be available on replay on YouTube. It will be available tomorrow, and everyone will receive a copy of the link in our follow-up email. So stay tuned there, folks. You know what? Everyone, I'm going to ask if you can spend 30 seconds here. Say, we're making good headway. We've got plenty of things still to cover. But I'm going to ask for you guys and gals to take 30 seconds of the presentation and give us some insight into a couple things that we're really trying to understand better so we can serve you guys and gals better. And that is, what features do you regularly use in Horizon? So I'm going to start a poll. It's going to be there for about 30 seconds. All I'd ask that you do is just select whatever items are applicable so we have some better insight into how we can improve Horizon for you. So, segue, impromptu segue, but we're going to do it. All right. What?
Oh, organizers and panels don't vote, it says at the bottom.
All right, everyone, we've spent 30 seconds on the poll. So thankful. We've got so many responses. I really greatly appreciate that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and close it so we don't take up everyone's time. Thank you so much for that. It's going to help us cater to your needs in the future. And we can set up webinars to cover that. All right, so we've got that poll closed. We're going to continue along. That was, I think, perfect time because we're just editing some company names or category names, pardon me. But, you know, this doesn't apply just for the description or limitations. You know, we haven't talked on it too much tonight, in fact, at all. But these changes, and I mean all of them, apply to your ancillaries as well. So you want to customize your site info, you want to customize your radon ancillary, any of them that we have, you can tweak them as well. So for example, maybe I want to change just attendees and change that to who attended the inspection. I can do that. Click in here, save, and we're done. That simple, that easy, and straightforward. You can completely customize category names to how you see fit. Furthermore, category names are also searchable, just like items or short names are. So you can utilize category names at the search function as well to isolate a specific category and bring up all the different conditions. And if you don't have site info, I'll make sure to help you out after the session, folks. Just send me an email or give me I'll put an info. Anyone who doesn't have site info, don't worry. What I'll do is I'll put something in the chat. You can just let me know and we'll take care of that after the session. Guarantee you, folks. I just can't get segued on that, but I promise we'll help you out.
Or you could listen to me and avoid using site info, but that's a whole different discussion. Philosophically, Alan Carson is not a big fan of site info, but that's a whole separate topic for another day.
We'll have to get into his philosophy another day. That's for another couple hours.
Yep.
All right. And again, folks, during the Q&A, I'll try to address as many things as we can. Hopefully everyone's still hearing us. Okay. So, folks, next thing we're going to do, you might have noticed that I've brought myself out of the customized screen, and I'm now at the report writing screen. So at the report writing screen, we're going to cap things off with our 3 last updates. So first thing we're going to go over is the ability. Hey, Ronnie, I'm glad that the audio cut back in for you. I'm not sure what's happening there, but thank you for letting me know. I'm trying to be mindful of that for everyone. All right, so from here, we're going to go over to our air conditioning, our cooling section, and to recommendations. Okay, so this one's pretty darn straightforward. And if you've ever created or converted a blank item to a my item before, same concept. Only now you have all the flexibility that we created for company items. Thank you for letting me know that, TJ. That gives me some real peace of mind, to be honest with you. So from here, I'm going to locate the air conditioning compressor category. And from there, I'm going to click blank item. Now remember, folks, blank item is designed for situations that are one-off, that you don't anticipate encountering frequently and don't warrant to be part of your database, don't warrant to be a company item. Not everything that you create as a blank item should be a company item. And in fact, less is certainly more. We're not discouraging you from creating and customizing your database, but ultimately, Horizon's got pretty much a lot of it in there. So add what you need, but don't necessarily put everything under the sun as a company item. You're going to find that things just get very unmanageable. So at this screen, we're not going to do much, in fact, nothing. I'm just going to click next. From here, we're going to go to the condition field. And the condition field, I'm actually going to copy this to save myself the embarrassment of typoing. And I'm just going to grab one here. Okay. We're not going to spend too long on this one, folks, because by and large, it's a repeat of what we've just looked at for the last 30 or so minutes. So the first thing we do is we put in the condition itself. I'm going to say vent close dryer should be 6 feet from unit. Now, if I click save and close, that establishes it as a blank item for this report alone. Now, let's say that I do consider this company worthy. We click on the pencil. I'm going to, again, bypass this just because we didn't fill out the recommendation for the example. And I'll click make this a company item. So you'll notice that we've replaced make it a my item with make it a company item. There's going to be circumstances just like this where you're sitting down to write a report and you encounter something that is warranted to be part of your database. We don't want you to go through hoops and be like, oh, wait a second. Now I got to go out of the report I'm writing. Let me go to the customize screen. Let me find the category again. Oh, was it this one? Was that? Oh, darn it. Let me go back for a second to figure out what I even wrote, right? No. We don't want you to have to fuss with that. You can go in and boom, create it. This is replacing my items, right? So we're going to talk about my items at the end of the session. Alan's got some some insights and some updates to keep you, but this is going to replace it and give you all that added functionality. Because now, once we save this as a company item, you'll notice that I now have it right here. However, it doesn't have the asterisks like the one we added to this report. So if in fact I even delete this bad boy from the report, we still have it right here, right? Now it's a standard item. And if I go to the customize screen, let me type in compressor. Oops, I don't want to bookmark. Compressor. Can't believe that was the fourth category. And it's right here. Click on it, and we can go ahead and make our changes. And maybe we wanted to do vent dry 6. Save. And I've now personalized that with its own short name. And if I go back to the report writing screen, I now have vent dry 6. But when I add it to the report, right, we've got the actual full condition right here. It's at the top of the screen.
Brian, I'm going to jump in and anticipate a few questions. Brian just snuck in the use of a numeral in a short name. I'm perfectly happy with you guys using any letter in the alphabet, any numeral, but do me a favor and stay away from the special characters. It confuses life in general. So your names, your short names, letters, and numerals. Thanks.
Yeah, no special characters, folks. Just keep it straightforward. And remember that you can utilize, 6 or 6 in this case, and this helps with the short name functionality we'll get to in a minute here. All right, save and close. And that is, in essence, how you can create your own items and then convert them to a company item with a single click. Unlock all the same flexibility that we've just reviewed tonight. In the interest of time, I'm not going to create another one of those. I think everyone gets the gist of it. We're going to move along to preset recommendations, which I think is really a really important feature for a lot of people. Now, presets. We introduced this several months ago. And when it comes to presets, we were originally able to preset standard items, company items, as we now call them. But your mod items, unfortunately, were limited. Now that limitation's completely gone. And in this instance, we can preset anything we'd like. For example, we created a recommendation this evening about a reduced size vent connector. Now, at this stage, I'm going to preset it. To do so, I click on the name and I make my recommendation. I can make it here or I could type it at the next screen. In this case, I'm going to omit the location because it's largely dependent where the water heater is. So I'm going to do task. In this case, the task for me will be to repair, or pardon me, in this case, to provide. Or no, repair.
Repair.
Yeah. Repair, pardon me.
Correct. Yeah.
And we'll say immediate. And then we can add it to our summary. All right, so I've established the foundation of my recommendation. I'll go to next. And we'll add in a note as well.
Just as Brian is doing that, this is apparent to everybody. We're using the presets to set up things that attach to specific recommendations, and we're doing this in the report writing environment, not the customize. So we spent half an hour fooling around in the customize environment. This is in your report writing environment where you get to set these presets. Sorry, Brian, for the interruption.
No, perfect, and that's exactly true. Right? So again, the step is that you create and customize things like the condition itself, implications, illustrations, all of that through the customize screen. Then when you want to add the nuances like location, cast time, you do it at the report writing screen. We can set it, forget it after a single click. So the foundation of my recommendation has been made. And again, the only thing I'll type in is the location each and every time this recommendation is made. Now though, we click this link right here. Set defaults. Remember, when we set up these presets, it applies to the mobile app. So if I'm out in field and I find this issue, I can apply this with a single click, and everything we've established now gets added to the report. So we've got, it now says default text is set. We've confirmed this is now a preset. Remember, this is something we created together half an hour ago. It's now a full-fledged, complete recommendation that we can add to a report in literally 2 seconds.
And I want to reinforce one of the things that I think is a super benefit to this, and that is the add to summary button. So when you do this, it makes your reports more consistent. It's great for the sole proprietor, but it's really good for the multi-inspector firms too. It brings consistency to your inspection reports, because if you decide that this recommendation is worthy of being promoted to the summary and included there, then you don't have to remember to do it each and every time. And if you're human like me, you're going to forget it sometimes. Using the preset, you don't have to remember to do it. And if you've got multiple inspectors working in your Horizon account, they all have the same recommendations going to the summary every time. It saves you time, makes you look better, provides better reports for your clients.
Great addition there, Alan. It's so true. This preset is going to save you a tremendous amount of time, and there's a lot of repetition when it comes to writing reports, and we want to try to streamline that as much as possible for you. So we're going to save this. All right, another one we'll do, and I'm going to jump over to exterior here. So this one, real cut and dry, real straightforward. Let's go ahead and click on clogged for gutters. Okay, so tell me, folks, I know personally that my recommendation when I have clogged gutters is this. Full stop. Now, if that's going to be my recommendation every time, let's not make ourselves make those same 3 clicks for the next 200 inspections we do this year. Click next. The foundation of our recommendation or our preset is made. And William, my good man, we click this link right here. Set these entries as defaults. Remember, we're at the report writing screen at this stage, right? We're no longer the customize environment. And we're going to click this link. And that's going to allow us to establish the preset. Save and close, and we've now added that in. Just for good measure, I'm going to delete it from the report, re-add it, and you can see once it's transitioned, we have everything already preset and filled in. No need for us to do anything further. Now, I got another one that I want to do here as well. So I have some narrative that I'd like to add in. So I'm going to go down to my walls here and cracked for stucco. Okay, so I'm going to just go to next here. Sometimes I like just to type things. Task prepare, time immediate. And I'm just going to grab a note that I've written out here. Now, I'm also going to include a cost estimate. I know that many inspectors are reluctant to include cost estimates. This is something that, Echoes at Carson Dunlop, they do. So I'm just sort of taking one of their items. If you don't feel comfortable with including cost estimates, not a problem. You omit it. It's completely up to you. And we'll just paste in that comment. So as you can see, this is where I'm going to propose you put in your narrative. So when you're creating your company items, especially recommendations, if you have lengthy narrative, make sure that the condition is in fact a condition, and then you can repurpose the note field like we're doing here for that lengthy narrative to supplement the item itself. And when we click set these defaults, we'll now include that narrative alongside the actual items of our recommendation. From here, save and close, and we've got that added in. And let's go ahead and jump along to our last item before Q&A, because we want to make sure there's some time. And I'm probably going to exceed the 9 o'clock mark, folks, so I do apologize, but we want to make sure that we get everything done, get a lot of questions answered. So I do appreciate everyone sticking with. So last item before we jump into Q&A are searchable short names. So actually, I didn't mention where I clicked there. We have a search function here. Now, this is the same search function as in Horizon Mobile, and just for ease of use, I'm going to use it tonight to demonstrate our search function. However, at the search function, we can search by keyword, right? So in this case, we can utilize any of the items we created tonight. So for example, we created one called reduce size. It's already selected. You can see it's the second match in the report. However, it's already selected, so I'm not going to re-add it. But if I wanted to, I could click add and add it to my report right now. Now, the next one we created, what was that again? It was about a dryer. Well, let's add in that last letter. Down to 1. That simple, right? So that was a short name we created, and it pulls up our lint fire potential and the dryer exhaust duct. We created a third one. I used, what was it again? Let's see, BA code. look at that. Again, folks, same concept in the mobile app. We'd pull this right up and be able to add it into a report with a single click.
Brian, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record when I say this is one of the most underused and most powerful features in Horizon. And I have a little mantra that goes a little bit like this. Navigation is dead. Long live search. Scrolling is a pain in the butt. It's a huge pain in the butt on mobile devices. Please use search every opportunity you have. It is 100 times faster than navigating and scrolling.
Especially with this robustness of short names, right? Because now you can tweak things to your own lingo, how you think of it mentally, and just because you may interpret something as a short name, right, the output can still be client-friendly, right? So the actual item is client-focused. The short name can be whatever you identify it by and makes it easier for you to pull up and add to a report. Now, I also mentioned that categories are searchable, right? So just a quick tip, folks. It's just going to take a second to load. So you might have noticed that I typed rec, and the reason why I did that is it just isolates the recommendations from the search, so I don't get descriptions or limitations. And I started to type subfloor. Now, at this point, it's shown me I have structure and interior, depending upon where I'd like to do that. If I really wanted to further isolate it, I can go int for interior, st for structure, and that allows me to isolate a specific category. And then from there, if one or multiple conditions were applicable, I can easily start adding them to the report. So you can utilize this to also search for categories, not individual items. Another one, just rec, and for example, gas cap. It's going to pull up all the items related to a gas cabinet. Now, if we needed to isolate, if it was a steam cabinet, for example, we can continue to put in additional words to refine that search. It's real handy, and the biggest takeaway I want you to have is that the short names are now searchable. So across the board, you're absolutely right. You want to find a specific limitation. You could just do lim storage, EX, right? So as you get through things, you can really utilize that. All right, let's go back to the report writing screen because I wanted to show everyone where we went to. And that was the search function right here. All right, folks. So at this stage, we're pretty much near 9 o'clock, and there's obviously going to be some time for Q&A. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for sticking with us for the last hour, learning about our new customized feature and a lot of the updates that we have. If you're not able to stay for the Q&A, we really do appreciate you staying with us, and the Q&A will be part of the replay. So if you want, you can always tune into the replay. I'll put some timestamps at the bottom of the YouTube video so you can jump to the Q&A section and you can just watch that if you don't have the opportunity to stay for our Q&A. I am going to limit ourselves to about 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A just in respect of everyone's time. We're not going to be able to obviously answer every question tonight, but we will try to be as thorough as possible and getting through as many as we can. So having said that, I am going to start trying to go through some of these questions at this point in time. And we're going to start with first question here. And I'm sort of working inverse chronologically just because it pops up. Gentleman, Rich asked first system. What's the first system button there? The first system button? It's for our designated first system. So why did we, do you feel there's a reason why we would change it from roofing description? Is there a matter of preference, or what's the...
Yeah, it's an absolute preference thing, Brian. So that first system is when you log into Horizon, by default, the first system you see is roofing. Now, that was done because our inspection protocol starts with the outside of the house and we start on the roof. And so that's a logical order for us. Some people might start inside the house. And so you have the opportunity to go and start with the first system, depending on where you start your inspection. Frankly, it's something that a few users requested in the early days, and we did it. I don't think it gets used very often, and I think most people leave the system defaults as roofing at the beginning, roofing exterior structure, and so on. Most of you are used to that logic and that flow and where the buttons are. I wouldn't fuss with that. So I would say that's an occasionally used customized thing. And by the way, the resorting of the buttons at the top, the everyday stuff is on the left in the lighter blue. The customized, specific, occasionally used stuff is on the right side. So most of you have probably figured that out, but we tried to make it a little more intuitive, especially for the new users coming on board, so that they could kind of separate all of that stuff.
Excellent. And I accidentally put the cart before the horse for Q&A, folks. I do want to mention or let Alan speak about some upcoming updates in the plan for My Items. I know a lot of our questions are earmarked around what's going to happen with My Items, how are we going to convert them, and so what we're going to do here is we're just going to actually touch on this before we get to some of the questions there.
Yeah, that should cut out about 100 questions, Brian. Let me tell you a little story. We're trying to make Horizon better and more flexible for you folks, and we have a bit of a journey in mind. And we've taken you down the first couple of steps of the journey and a couple of big steps. We took a smallish step a month or so ago. This one is a little bigger, and we've got a few more steps to go. And the evolution is to give you more flexibility. And historically, My Items were a great idea back in the day, but frankly, they have some disadvantages. My Items have some functionality that our old standard items did not have. Our standard items had some flexibility that My Items did not have. So we are moving to a model where we have company items. We're putting you in control of creating them, hiding them, and editing them. And along the way and through the journey, we are trying to be really respectful and really careful that we don't create any work for you or take anything away from you. So as we go down this journey, we are preparing to move all of your My Items over into company items without you having to lift a finger, without you losing anything, and with you gaining simplicity, flexibility, control, and power to make Horizon more specific to your needs. So we're not doing it all at once for two reasons. One is it would be a big change for us and a million things could go wrong. Better to go step by step. Secondly, for you folks, it would be more disruptive. And so we're going step by step with some logic, a plan, and hopefully the transition feels comfortable for you. So to the second point on the slide, we're pretty focused on not breaking anything for you, not damaging your functionality along the way. So that is pretty key. Brian, do you want me to go ahead and touch on the next and answer a couple more questions proactively?
Yeah, I think that's perfect because that's going to help eliminate. There's a bulk of the questions are interrelated to this. Okay. We're obviously going to address as much as we can for other questions, but I think this is going to help put a lot of people's minds at ease and give them some perspective on what's coming next.
And along the way of trying to be accommodating to user requests, we created a general category at the top of each system. And we did it in such a way that it didn't behave like the rest of the standard items. And I wish we hadn't done that in retrospect. So we are trying to recreate the general category so it behaves the same as everything else Brian has showed you tonight. So that's a work in progress. I think that'll be coming fairly shortly. It's part of that evolution. So we've made a bunch of changes to make things better and also to make them more the same. It's one of the confusing things in life when things are almost the same but a little bit different, and we're trying to clean that up along the way, and that general category is one of them. So we're aware of it, we're working on it, trying to make it like the rest, and as I say, should have an answer for you shortly. So there are steps to come. We're not finished with this journey. We appreciate your patience along the way, and hopefully every step is an improvement for you.
Perfect. Rick had a question about if he's setting this up for himself, right? He's got company, he's got individual inspectors under him. When he's building out his database, right? That's going to transfer to his inspectors as well. So if he sets up an item with illustrations, implications, everything, you set it one time, your company's got it, right?
You got it.
Perfect. You don't have to worry about, that micromanaging of everything, right? It's going to one time and everyone across the board in your company has that. Dan asked a question about links. I did show that during the presentation that you can still incorporate links. It is done at the customized screen though, so that's where you're going to want to make sure that you put in your links. And if you have any issues with that, please just let me know. I can obviously take that offline and help you separate from that. Okay, and Charles, as many people had that question about converting, yes, we are going to have a tool that allows you to convert that. Just stick with us, and we will get that available to everyone. All right, so I'm just reading through the questions, folks, so I can get one out to Alan there. And Durley asked a question, is there a way to add sorting, alphabetical? And you know what, Durley? There 100% is. That's the beauty of that sort function we were looking at. So again, just to recap, when you're at the report writing screen, at any point in time, you just simply click the sort button. So in this case, coming to here, click sort. And by clicking on sort, we can rearrange the sequence of items into our own particular preference. So in this case, perhaps I'd like to reassign solar shingles right beside my slate shingles. Having a little bit more logical, I've now made that adjustment, save, and I've immediately rearranged the sequence of items in that particular category.
So Brian, let me just touch on a couple of options you have here. So the question was about alphabetical sorting, which makes sense at one level. Some people like to sort by having the most common defects first so that it speeds up their report writing. Some people like to have the biggest, most important defects first in case you have multiple defects for a system, so you get the big picture items first. And as Brian just did, some people like to group their items so that ones that are of a similar nature appear together. So there's a number of different strategies you can use, and you don't need to use the same strategy for everything all the way through. You can do different strategies for different items or different categories as you see fit. So again, we've tried to give you pretty good control here. I'm not sure that we did show the sort during the discussion.
Actually, I think so.
Yeah. But it is super quick and easy. Brian, just give me 5 seconds again of dragging. It's a drag and drop tool that takes, the learning curve is about 3 seconds and using it takes about 2.
Perfect. Well, let's go to our venting system one that we were talking about earlier. And we've got that reduced size vent connector there. We're going to go ahead and click sort. And I'm just going to rearrange that to my vent connector issues there. So you can see I've now repositioned it along the 2 vent connector items. Save, and we've now made that change as well. I'm just got to go back to the category. Give me a second here, folks, and you can see it right there. So very easy to sort, and you're absolutely right, Alan, and my apologies to everyone in attendance. We did accidentally bypass one of the items in our presentation. I think the fanfare about creating and editing things took us by storm, and as a byproduct, I unfortunately forgot that, so don't judge me too harshly, folks. But as you saw, easy to do. And Durley, thank you. You're the man for asking that question so we could get that showcased here. TJ has a question about, will the short name show up in Horizon Mobile? You bet. Fantastic. That's the beauty of it, TJ, for me, was before, I was customizing my mod. I'm setting up these short names and getting the mobile app, and I do a lot of training, and you just see, and you're like, darn, I really want that short name to identify by. So, I feel your pain previously, and now I can also relish in your pleasure kind of thing. So it's a great update, and you're going to see those short names in the mobile app. Let's see here. Daryl has a question about adding our own illustration files. Basically, at this point, we don't have the ability for you to incorporate your own illustrations. However, we're very responsive to creating illustrations. In fact, I mentioned we were at about 1,700 last year, maybe 1,750. We're at 1,805 this as of 2020. So at the very least, we've put in 50 or 50 plus new ones quite readily. So what I would ask, Daryl, if you find that an illustration is missing from our database, send us a ticket saying, hey, I would feel this is really valuable. Give us some insight. If you've got an example, we would love to see it. And we can go from there.
And let me add one thing. That's a great question, by the way. And this is how we end up building our databases. We get people submit either questions for or great illustrations that we add. And what I like to do to keep Horizon looking consistent is have our graphic artist create the illustration. So even if you give us one that you like, and there are lots of illustrations out there in lots of different styles, we'll probably recreate it in the what I'm going to call the Horizon style of illustration so that your reports look consistent. I don't like a whole bunch of jumbles of different styles in a single report. So absolutely encourage you to do that. We have our upvote feature so that you folks can submit feature requests like that, submit the illustrations, fire a sample over to us, and we're happy to look at it. And as long as it's useful to what we would consider a significant number of people, it's technically accurate, we're happy to add that to the portfolio. It makes it better for all users, and that's really the goal of the exercise.
Excellent. And sort of a supplement to that, James has a question. Are illustrations located with Horizon? You got to pay extra money.
You got to pay extra money for illustrations in Horizon? Absolutely not.
In fact, do you have to pay extra money for anything in Horizon?
Not much. It's pretty much all inclusive. So yeah, we try not to nickel and dime on Horizon. The illustrations, if you wanted to go buy those illustrations, if you were using different software, it would cost you the better part of $300. It's included in Horizon for free. And every time we add some, by the way, we add a bunch of illustrations to Brian's point. We also updated a bunch of illustrations. So we try to make them better as we go on. We refine them, we update them. Sometimes we just make text changes to make them more clear. We get, with the hundreds of thousands of people reading reports and so on and questions that come up, we get a chance to filter and improve stuff all the time. We're never going to be perfect. Horizon is always going to be a work in progress, but we're always trying to get it a little better every day. One little more weight on the flywheel.
Thank you. And looking here, let's see here.
You're not going to tell me we're out of questions.
No. I got so many, but I'm trying to filter through some of the ones that asked about my item, converting my items. Is it okay? And we've sort of addressed like deleting and things as we went through. But yeah, so just to reinforce, as far as deleting items, you certainly. Oops, I don't know why it popped up on screen. I don't want to reboot. As far as deleting items, Don, a question: can you delete items you don't use? 100%. Now, keep in mind that you can only delete items you create. You don't have the ability to delete items that Horizon built into the system. So for example, I'm at my venting system. We created reduced size vent connector. Too long is a standard company item that Horizon created. If I click on it, you'll notice that I can repurpose it, but I can't delete it. There's no delete button at the bottom. And that's by intention. Now, we don't want you to start deleting things and then maybe have a change of heart later on and say, oops, where do I go? However, I will show you a show hide function that allows you to hide these items from the database. So if they're not relevant to you, you just dismiss them and you don't have to see them every time you're writing a report. So I'll show you that in just a second there. And that way you can allow yourself back control. Now, to your other point, Don, if I click on reduce size vent connector, I do want to point out, you'll notice currently I can't delete it. Reason being is it's in my report. You cannot delete items that you've created unless they are currently not in a report or not selected.
So let me just talk about the rationale about why Horizon does that. And by the way, I would have given you a much shorter answer. When the question comes up, can I delete something? The answer is yes, use the show hide tool. The reason that we do not allow you to delete things is Horizon is driven by a database. If you have used an item in any previous report 3 years ago, it doesn't matter. When you go to recreate that report, Horizon has to grab that item out of the database to recreate the next version of the PDF of the report. That's why we let you hide it and get it out of your way, but we keep it in the database in case you need to recreate a 3-year-old report or a client wants to go in and recreate a report. So if it's ever been used in a report, so what Brian is saying, and when you create a new item, if you use it for 6 months and then don't use it, just hide it. Because you can't delete it, because if anyone wants to create those reports from the last 6 months, the report would not generate properly if we took it out of the database. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but short answer, yeah, you can get anything out of your line of sight that you don't want.
Well, that makes perfect sense here. And, in this case, if I did remove this one item, I'll show you both. So going back to the report writing screen here. So first and foremost, to Alan's point, if I felt that this item was completely no longer relevant, right, I'm just going to remove it from the report that we had. But by and large, if I wanted to, say, remove too long, I click Show Hide Items, which is right up here. It's going to load up all of the different categories and items within my plumbing recommendations. It may take a moment or so for it to load. And then at that point in time, we could hide too long or even reduce size vent connector. Now, because I have removed reduce size, I'll also show you where you can ultimately, if you want, take it out. But it's just taking a second to transition here.
Usually take a second.
All right, the show hide's taking a little bit of time to load. So while that's processing, let's go to the next question, and Don will circle back to show you the show hide once it loads up there. I've done quite a bit of editing to my database, so it's just taking a little bit longer than anticipated. William had a question about the asterisks. So basically, the asterisk is only there to denote now a blank item or your previous my item. So over time, once we do the full conversion, you're only going to see an asterisk on an item when you create it for that particular report and don't convert it to a company item. So the asterisk will, moving forward, denote blank items specific to that report once the conversion has been completed. So Eric asked a question about the task. As you saw, Eric, we're going to assign the task during the preset portion of the recommendation. We create the condition, we customize it, and then if we want to, we can then preset values like location, task, and time. All right, so our show hide screen is loaded. It had a lot of information to process. And again, we're just going to go down to the venting system for a quick second. And you can see here, Don, if I click on too long, it basically hides it. So it turns it to a lighter gray. And at this point, it's now hidden from my database. And if I wanted to also hide reduced size vent connector, there, I've now hidden those two items. And if I go to the bottom of the screen and click back to report writing, much quicker, you'll see that we no longer have too long or reduced size vent connector available. Now, if I go back to the customize screen, because I have removed that item from its only report, I can also officially delete it. Okay, there we go. I'm a millennial, so as soon as I click something, if it doesn't respond, I immediately click it again. That's my fault. Don't let the internet take its time. See, and now I can delete. Gone. So we have that ability completely out of our database if we need. So just to confirm, Rick and Stephen, when we do reset, it resets it back to its default values. So when we go to, in this case, I'll go to structure. We had removed the illustrations from typical minor cracks. Click on it, reset all to original system values, click OK, and now it has the illustrations back in effect. So very easy to reset. It only applies to the item you're currently editing, and it will reset it back to whatever was standard. If it's something you created, it resets it back to its name and a name alone. All right, sorry, I'm just processing because when I asked for if the audio is okay, we get like 100 responses, so I'm having to scroll through those to see.
Well, we're also coming up to 9:20, Brian, so we're going to have to wind things up. Now, I have a question. If there are questions in here that we don't get to answer, is there any way we can get people those answers?
Most certainly. So what I can do is I'm going to go through to see what we haven't addressed, and then I can save those questions and we can address them separately, be it in the follow-up email, we can contain it, or we could just do a little bit of ad-lib to the Q&A portion afterward. Actually, to be completely honest, there are certainly some nuanced questions here, but I think we've got a lot of the main questions addressed, quite fortunately. Some people do want to challenge you on the site information, so that could be a great topic for us for another webinar about Alan's philosophy. Alan's philosophy, folks. So if that is something you'd like to hear and maybe have some roundtable discussion about, could be another webinar we set up. So we'd love to get some feedback on that. Okay, and for people that don't have site info, outside of Alan's temperament toward it. If you do need it on your account, please just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, and I will get it onto your account. And my email is just brian@carsondunlop.com. All right, send that to everyone, and I will get that onto your account right away. Okay, so folks, all right, everyone. I do see some very unique questions that I think would be better served for me to try to address outside of the Q&A, just simply because I have to interpret and maybe clarify. If I did not get to your question, I do apologize. We had so many that it wasn't possible for me to truly get through all unless we had another hour. And realistically, we've already taken so much of your time tonight that we don't really want to take too much more, although we would love to engage you for the full time. So I'm going to say at this point that I think it's appropriate for all of us to sort of cut off at the Q&A. I'm sorry to say that, but we've tried to address as much as we could. I'm going to look through the remaining questions, and I'm going to do my best to include those or answers to them in the Q&A. We'll make an amendment, or I'll just write out the answers and include them individually to you. So I do have everyone's email, and if there are certain things that may be better served for us to talk one-on-one, I will follow up with each and every one of you. So sorry if I didn't get to your question, folks, but I really do appreciate all of the participation, engagement, and the fanfare that we've had around this function. Alan, do you have sort of any parting words?
I just wanted to say thank you, guys. I'm amazed at how many people have showed up this evening, and I'm amazed and delighted at how many have stuck around to the end. So thank you so much for caring. Thank you for listening and participating.
And Lee, I want to make sure, yes, you can add the location, direction, all of that. Remember, that's part of the preset. So when you're customizing, the customize aspect is the creation of the condition and things that you previously couldn't do, like implications, illustrations, and the URL. The actual recommendation side of things, Lee, you always want to do at the report writing screen, right? So we create the condition in one area, and then we do the customization as the recommendation in a slightly different context. Now, another thing that I do want to mention for people, if you're nervous about messing up like a live report, what I always do is I go in and I set up my own address. You could call it, the nice thing about Horizon, you could also call it sample report, John Doe. And now you've got a report that you can play with. You don't have to worry about potentially messing up a live report, and any changes you make in the sandbox inspection will apply to all of your other reports as well. So, if that is something, a concern you have, set something up, call it sample report, put your own address, you'll know it always, you have it there, you can revisit it and return to it anytime you'd like. And all you do, folks, when you're done with things, right, just go to report publishing, mark complete. That way, when you're done editing, it's no longer sitting there as an in-progress inspection. And later on, if you ever want to go back and make further changes, this is why I like to use sample, because it simply pulls it up. I've got my sample report, back to the report writing screen, and I continue to work in my sandbox environment. So that's sort of last throw in there. I definitely want to mention there, folks. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for staying with us. Really do appreciate how we can help out, and anything else we can do, just let us know. Eric, my good man, if you're interested in ordering Horizon, first and foremost, welcome to the community. And secondly, if you have a trial account, you can go to the order button right here. Now, I'm actually current, because my account's set up for credits. Yours will be set up to be able to set up a subscription. You just go to the order button. Now, Eric, the other thing I can do is I could certainly I can certainly, Eric, if you don't have a trial, why don't you just give me your email and let me follow up with you after the session. I think that'll be a little bit better. So can you just put me your email in the chat for me, Eric? You're the man. Thank you so much. I'm going to follow up with you right after we finish the webinar. We can get you set up, okay? All right, Eric, you're going to hear from me momentarily. Everyone else, have a fantastic evening. I will look through the questions, and I will do my best to send everyone a follow-up email with an answer to their question. And again, you're going to link to the full presentation in tomorrow's follow-up email. Talk to you all later, folks. Hope to see you in our weekday training sessions. Thanks for choosing Horizon.
Bye for now.